time, my friends, for us to introduce Evelyn Kung, and it's Ask Evelyn Kung today, which is a very exciting thing. You filled in for Dr. Granpeesheh for us before, and it was a really good time.
Yeah, it was great.
And we got great feedback from our viewers, and so thrilled to have you here. You've been working in this field for, I shudder to think, how many years? It's over 2 decades.
Yes, it's definitely over 2 decades.
And with all kinds of individuals, one of the things that I love about you is that you have an amazing library in your head that I keep asking you to write books, because you have lists of things that our kids need to know, especially for those teens, those of you who are watching who have teenagers and adults who are doing really well and then they hit a wall with something and say, I just don't know how to do this. You're always the person that I run to because you can tick off all the things that they need to know. It's kind of amazing.
No, I mean, it's just a lot of experience. I mean, having done this for so long and doing it in so many ways, because I used to travel internationally and just, plop myself into a village in the middle of South Africa or India or wherever, and having to deal and see all the situations. And I think that just that background and not having anything to depend on and trying to really get to know the kids, and that really is the heart of it, is getting to know the kids, the family, and what's available, and then working within their circumstances.
Well, you're a wonderful resource, and we really appreciate you filling in today.
Thank you.
And Dr. Granpeesheh will be back with us next week, so everybody can look forward to that. But in the meantime, keep your questions coming in for Evelyn Kung. And also, for those of you who watch the show on a regular basis, you may remember that we talked a little bit about the fact that Evelyn was my NASA buddy. And went with me to NASA just a little over a month ago so that we could tour the facility with the fabulous Dr. Temple Grandin.
Yeah, that was
very
amazing.
Cool thing. It was a very cool
It was
thing.
amazing.
We still haven't shared any footage with them, but we will very soon. But I want to start off today with a question that came in the last week on the live feature from a viewer on our live site who wants to know, what do you do while you're waiting to have your child officially diagnosed?
This is a hard one because, there's kids everywhere, and the ability to diagnose, it just makes me sick when I think that that's the wait period, is that's what you're waiting for, is the diagnosis. And really, I mean, besides getting your name on that wait list to start, there's a lot of things that you can do just for yourself, although you may not feel that you are capable of it. And I would say right now what a mom told me a long time ago was, she just said, you know what, you just have to, you can be in denial, but as long as you get moving and you get into emergency mode, that's what you need to be doing, because this is just what's needed. And I just remember her saying, you just can convince yourself that you're just doing it for a temporary amount of time.
Yes.
You can get through anything.
Yes.
And she always said, if you just pretend it's an emergency that needs to be dealt with right now, you just do it.
Isn't that the truth? I think that's great advice, because I remember feeling, once we were pretty sure that it was autism, that this was going to, everything that we did, I was like, oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. And it was all these question marks, but everything felt like it was going to be permanent. And the truth is that nothing was permanent. Yeah. There were phases of things, and none of it was permanent. So great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, what else can we tell these folks what to do? Because I think that's the hardest time while you're waiting to get started, because you feel a little helpless.
Yeah, and you're questioning everything.
Yeah.
And I always say, question anything you want, because if later on it proves wrong, you can just be like, oh, it's okay. You wasted a little time, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You did something, because if something was wrong and you actually addressed it, you got what was important.
Yeah.
So one of the first things, like we were talking earlier, is you have to make sure your child's healthy.
Yeah.
Just biologically, medically, just healthy. So if your child is having a lot of diarrhea, or is having constipation, or is like sick all the time, just health-wise, I would encourage you to reach out to your physicians and and widen your scope of physicians too. You're not only looking at your typical pediatrician who you may like, but you're also looking now for maybe a physician that specializes with kids with developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
And then if you are pretty sure it's on the autism range, or even if you're not, you might go look for a physician who specializes in all the biomedical needs of the kids with autism.
Yeah.
Because you really need to get these kids healthy. If the kids aren't feeling well, if they're not sleeping, if they're not doing all these things, just think about what you feel like when you're sleep deprived or not eating well or your stomach hurts. It's really difficult to learn.
Yeah. Chances are, if you're at a place where you're waiting to get a diagnosis, then there is some form of delay, wouldn't you say, that has caused you. Now, it may not be autism, but there may be other reasons for delay. So I want to say that the odds are at some point somebody's going to talk to you about ABA therapy, because we know it is the most effective teaching tool. And when anybody is behind in learning something, or not where you want them to be in terms of learning, we just know that ABA is the most effective teaching tool, and it can help our kids in particular to get caught up. I always like to bring that up because people think, oh, ABA is an autism treatment. Well, we do use it as an autism treatment, and it's a very effective autism treatment, but ABA is used widely throughout the world.
Yeah, ABA is used for sports medicine. It's used to train Olympic athletes. It's used for with eating disorders. I mean, it's used for GM and Chrysler and all these big companies who hire ABA people to come and improve the performance of their employees.
Yeah.
So ABA is a wide range. The most popular use now is with autism, and it's
because it's so effective.
Because
right?
it's so effective and the dramatic improvement.
Yes.
You know, and when you're talking about kids and when you're talking about wanting to get them to to learn as much as they can, that ABA is the most effective. You know, a lot of times people will start thinking, no, it's only for the severe, or it's only for this group or that group. In reality, it helps the whole group on the spectrum, the ASD spectrum. There's no limits.
I was just talking to somebody the other day who was, again, reiterating something that she had heard about, oh, well, ABA is only for those kids. You can't have the kids that are really affected. You do ABA, it's not going to be good for them. And for kids who are really high functioning, you wouldn't waste their time doing ABA. And I wanted to burst into tears because that, you know, on both ends, those kids could have profound progress that's just being shut down because of somebody's opinion that isn't even accurate.
And we've heard that for years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only for this group or that group. And in reality, every group, because the whole thing about ABA is you meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And if they all have some kind of delay or a strength, you're going to meet them where they're at in terms of their delay. And if they have a strength, and let's say they're on the higher functioning end, you're going to use that strength to work on that delay.
And for the kids who are so high functioning and maybe they've gotten diagnosed a little bit late, a lot of times people go, well, what they need are social skills. That's what they should go into is social skills. I don't know, maybe it's, and help me to know, because my son had CARD, so I know that CARD teaches all the fundamental social skills, and maybe other ABA providers don't. I don't know, but in your experience, I feel like those are the kids who need ABA just as much as anybody else, because they're going to get those social skills in a way that they're going to be able to learn them and get caught up.
Definitely. I mean, I think that many times, I mean, I just did a few calls off the cuff for one of our 800 numbers. And the mom called and said, you know, I have this really high functioning 9-year-old and can talk and is in mid school, and then I said, well, tell me about their conversation level. Like, do they really talk to you? Yeah. And then it turned out that he was just really bright, and he was using a lot of scripting to talk. So he was taking all these different conversations that he's heard in different places to talk. And in her mind, she was like, that's talking. And I said, well, to be social, you have to bend with the situation. You can't memorize language to use in social situations. It's very difficult. And the fact that her child had gotten away with this for so long was impressive. Yeah. But it wasn't going to earn him friendships and things like that, or be able to interact with friends, because he was trying to memorize everything everywhere he went.
Right.
And so social skills are so complex that it's just like looking at basic language first and saying, like, do you have the flexibility to be able to respond to somebody else in that manner? Because every social situation is different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll put kids into these social groups, and they're good because, they get some interactions from practice, but a lot of the rules aren't set up as well. And I have to agree that with ABA, everything is set up. We're dividing everything. We're like, it's not just talking. It's like, okay, you need to know how to initiate a conversation. And before you can initiate a conversation with a friend, you have to know kind of what they're into.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to recognize the social skill of this child's always wearing, a t-shirt with Star Wars on it. Then you know that that's an interesting topic for that child.
Yeah.
Or if a child walks in, a girl, usually it's the girls that have the kitty cats and the dogs, you know that, oh, they're interested in their animals. But there's all these social skills that can be broken down into these small parts that you really can build upon as you're going along. And people don't think of it as in those parts.
So, and I kind of got us a little off tangent here, but I wanted you to know, why you're going to hear about ABA, because it's such a powerful thing. But so while you're waiting to get diagnosed, there are some things that you can do to learn more about ABA and even start to be able to utilize some of the tools of ABA yourself, even before you get the diagnosis or get started. It won't hurt anybody.
We've been so impressed with some of the families that have walked in. The ones that really do the research. But I'd say one source is IBT. So it's the Institute for Behavioral Training. And they have a website that they just have a ton of these modules that you can go online anytime that you want. You just sign up for a subscription, and you don't have to pay for everything. You just have to look at each one and decide, like, well, I want to learn how to get my child to be compliant. I want to learn just, the basics of ABA. You can go on there, and they're broken into very small sections, and you can 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and you can go on there anytime that you want and be able to get a module and actually learn from it. And they have little built-in quiz questions with it to make sure that you're understanding everything. But I'd say the IBT website is one of the best places to be. We've had parents go in and do almost every single module that by the time they come in, they're really as good as a lot of our therapists.
Yeah, which I still, in our back bathroom, and I had this on the front bathroom for years when we were doing therapy, a little sign that said, your team is only as strong as the weakest player, and I will not be the weakest player on the team, right? Because that was important to me.
Yeah.
And so you can do that. The website is ibehavioraltraining.com. ibehavioraltraining.com. There it is. Thank you, Samantha. And you should know, it's incredibly affordable. And I know people always say that, and I always think, well, what's affordable to you? Because affordable to you isn't necessarily. It's like $7, $10, $13
and you can
for
just
a
go
module.
in and just choose, and you can just choose the little module that you want to do and learn it. Some people like to go through the whole thing. Some people will just take one at a time, do it on their own time, and a lot of times you're too busy, and the only time is in the middle of the night for many people.
Yes.
And so you can do it in any increment that you want. You can learn it, and you can try it out, just see, like, hey, you start looking at your child differently because you've gained more knowledge. And so even if your child's, just eating breakfast, you'll be sitting there looking at them like, wait, do they know how? Are they really holding that spoon?
Yeah.
You're really looking like, what are they actually saying at this time? And it really helps you start to look at your child with that eye.
Yes.
Of what can you learn.
And the other nice thing about, I love that it's flexible. You can do it anytime, but also, so let's say you pay $7 and you get one of the trainings and you sit and watch it and you go, okay, I think I got that, but I want to rewind. You can rewind, you can go back. Then you can have everybody who babysits your child do it. It's perfect. So you can do that. I always like to mention my friends at Skills, who give me the tent because I talk about them. And you can go skillsforautism.com. They have the curriculum that everybody would need at whatever point that they're at. But one of my favorite things, because I always say, when you go to the mall and you walk into a strange mall and you don't know where you are and you don't know where anything else is, and you go to the big map that says you are here and you look for the little dot, you are here. I always wanted that in autism. I wanted somebody to tell me, this is exactly where you are. This is where you need to get, but this is where you are. So I could have a visual in my head. The Skills has a thing in it, an assessment that does that.
Yes. So essentially what Skills is it's curriculum, but there's an assessment at the beginning. You can go in and you put in your child's birthday, and it will only give you the amount of questions and information up to your child's birthday. So it goes up to about 8. It can go till for adults, and that's coming. But when you're doing this assessment, if you have a 2-year-old, it'll only give you what a 2-year-old should know. So then for a lot of parents have that question, like, is this normal? Is this what I just thought this is what another 2-year-old did. And because you have these questions in front of you, it starts and you're answering them, and they're very much in detail, and you just go through them. But it gives you an idea of just, can my child do this? I didn't know my child was supposed to be doing this. Yeah. And at the end of the assessment, it'll graph out all in the different areas. So there's a language area, a social area, and there's 8 curricula. curricula, and you just go through and you can see, where does my child land?
It's really a powerful thing for a lot of different reasons, because it can be devastating. We have to say that. Sometimes you go, oh my gosh, I'm this far behind. But you know what? That's like standing at the bottom of the mountain and just looking at the top of the mountain. Once you get on the pathway, you lose sight of where the top of the mountain is, but you still know you're going there, and it's easier once you're on the mountain. So, it gives you that reality check. Oh, this is how far behind we are. If you cry a few tears over it, you cry a few tears over it, but then you know where to get started. It tells you exactly where to get started, which is a powerful thing. And here's the other thing, is that when you're equipped with where you are, one of the biggest things for me that I didn't know for the longest time, because skills didn't exist when my son was first being diagnosed, but when they were able to show me, oh, your child actually has much more language going on than what he is exhibiting, because he's taking it in, that his receptive language was stronger than his expressive language, that translated into teaching tools for us, that we got hopeful and we knew what to do targeted next. It made the hours that we spent with him more productive.
Mm-hmm. And I think like the way the skills built, so after you do the assessment, you get all these activities that you do in each curriculum. And each of the activities is coded. So there are 3 types of activities. There are building blocks, fundamental skills, and expansion skills. So the fundamental skills are the key component, and the building blocks lead up to it. So if you don't get overwhelmed by the whole thing, you can just choose one fundamental, look what comes before it, and it's all the steps that gets you to that first base.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it in those smaller increments, it becomes not so overwhelming.
Yes.
Instead of like just jumping from here to here, there's all these steps that are given to you in between about how to get there.
Yeah. This whole thing just really, what it says to me, and what I want to make sure that parents hear, is that you can do something today. You can empower yourself to do something today. You don't have to wait for anybody else anymore. It used to be we did, but you don't have to wait, and you shouldn't wait. Every single day is an opportunity to teach a million things. And if you empower yourself with this information, not only can you get started today, and you're not going to do everything today, but you can get started and take little steps today. But when you do get the diagnosis, whatever it is, your child will be in a better place than they were. You will be in a better place than you were, and you will be more prepared for whatever is to come next.
Most definitely. I mean, you can go in there, you can learn, and you can start implementing just small steps at a time. And you'll see, because a lot of times people just say, well, I just don't know what to do with them. Or I haven't been around a kid in forever.
Right.
What do I do with them? But it's just, you just take one activity for the day, and if you decide, I'm going to teach you how to do this puzzle, or we're just going to eat breakfast, whatever it may be, you just choose that one thing and say, okay, I'm going to work on it in this section. And when he learns it, then you can move on to the next. And that's how ABA really is built. But also I think it helps with families, because it helps parents kind of just organize and just say, I don't need to change their whole day right now.
Right.
Because that's overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so overwhelming.
overwhelming.
And I hope, too, that you avail yourself of some support services, that, be here with us, and you can write in questions, and just as you did. But there are also support groups through TACA. We feature them a lot on the show. It's tacanow.org. They have a blog, and they have parents that are available to talk to you. If you go on Cafe Mom or any one of the Yahoo groups, that there might be a group in your area. I always tell people it's a good thing to have a group that's local, that you can say to somebody, so where's the dentist that everybody goes to for kids who have issues with this, that, or the other thing. And then it's really good to have a group that's global, because it may be that the people in all kids with autism, all people with autism are different. And when you find another parent who has the same kind of kid that you do, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is so exciting. And I actually have parents who always tell me, if you ever see another child like mine, will you tell me? You don't have to tell me their name. You just have to tell me. I just need to know they exist.
Yes. But I think it's fun, too, to be able to talk to those parents and see things. I gotta say this while we're talking about this, because we had a young man, he was on the show twice in the last year. His name's Kobe Bird. And when I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, he reminds me of somebody near and dear and close to my heart. And they've now met and are good friends and so on and so forth. The only thing is that my son is not as into performing as Kobe is. And one of the reasons why we had Kobe on the show is that he's about to be 15 any day now. And he is an actor, has been doing a lot of stuff with Elaine Hall's Miracle Project group, but he was on the show because he got chosen to do the Broadway Cares. He got to go to New York and work with the Broadway actors, chosen from a group that he did this summer. Well, Kobe booked his first professional acting job, and he is on Speechless tonight. If you tune in tonight on Speechless, you will recognize him. He is the very tall redhead. He's like 6'2", which reminds me of my kid too. And so he plays a friend of the character, the son who is in the wheelchair and uses the assisted technology to speak. And he's got a pretty out there costume, and I hear it's a really hilarious episode. So support Kobe.
Definitely.
And watch Speechless tonight. On that note, I hope we gave you enough information about things to do without overwhelming you before you get the diagnosis. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with more questions for Evelyn Kung. Stick with us. Welcome back to Autism Live. This is the segment of the week where we normally do Ask Dr. Doreen, but as I mentioned at the start of the show, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh was called away, and we're very fortunate that the clinical director for CARD, Evelyn Kung, agreed to come in and answer your questions, and that's always a thrill and a delight. Those of you who've watched the show before know that she was my NASA buddy too, that she went with me to NASA to tour with Dr. Temple Grandin, and so she's a wealth of knowledge and really fun to have here with us. We had so many questions that have come in, but somebody wrote in, we like to do jargon here. We do jargon of the day, and somebody wrote in with something that had come up a couple of weeks ago, but we have not actually done jargon. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you, because it's always fun for me when we get new jargon. What is control stimulus?
Oh, as much as you love jargon, I don't.
Well, I started out hating it. Let's be clear about that. The reason why we do jargon of the day here is because I hated it so bad and refused to participate.
It's so funny.
And anytime somebody would say something, I would say, no, speak to me in terms that I would understand without a degree in psychology. And then I discovered that I was wasting time.
Yes.
And that I needed to, if I could learn what those terms were, we could get more done.
Exactly. And I think that's ultimately it. When you look at actually ABA as a science, the whole science is just a lot of terminology.
Yes.
You can speak in ABA speak, and no normal person would understand anything you're saying.
It's hilarious.
It's really funny, and it's a game that we play around here sometimes.
And they have memes on Facebook where they'll make those little cards and they'll say all the different words. And here's the funny thing: I used to read those and go, "Oh, that's hilarious," but have no idea what it meant. And the longer I'm here, the more I'm like, "Yeah, I know what that means." I always say I've gone to the dark side. That I understand. I don't understand all of it. Let's be clear about that. But and we hear a lot of times people will say, well, you just need to bring it under stimulus control. And I go, what?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially stimulus or stimuli in the ABA world is it can be an object, it can be an action, it can be anything that is going to prompt someone else to move or go forward, okay? And then control is control. So if you're asking, like, I need stimulus control or control stimulus, it means, so a family can walk in and say, oh yeah, he does this, he can ask me. And then, he tells me what he wants. And we'll be like, okay, so let's see him tell you what he wants. And then the family will be trying. They'll be like, can you? And they'll be talking. They'll be trying to, like, coach, kind of get him, trying to prompt him, trying to get him to, and it never comes. Okay. And then they look at me and they'll say, like, really, he does do this.
Right.
And all that tells me is, oh, I believe you. It just is not under stimulus control. Being able to put it under stimulus control means that I can say this one thing and you'll tell me exactly right back.
Okay.
Right on command, it'll happen. So if I ask you what an object is, you're going to tell me it's a cup. Okay. Without waiting or hemming or hawing. If I ask you what's your name, you're going to be able to just tell me right off. Okay. A lot of the kids that come in, they might know their name, but maybe it's not paired with the control of what's your name. Somebody asking the question.
Got it.
So we see it all the time, and families actually get really nervous, and I always tell families, don't be nervous. All it means is he does know it on one level, but he doesn't know at the level where it can come automatically, where I can ask him, what's your name, and it comes right away.
Interesting, because I feel like a lot of what we get a whole segment of questions from people who say, I'm not necessarily thrilled with what's happening at school because school teaches in a way that doesn't do this.
Yes.
The school says, oh, well, they can do it here. So, and it never goes any further than that. So what we want to be saying to the schools is, oh, we want this under stimulus control.
Yeah, we want it
in kids, all environments.
Yeah, and that's generalization.
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of our kids have that good rote memory, and it's better than any memory I could ever have. But they remember it in that one situation, in that one area, with the one person. And they might know it for that one person, but for no one else, so that goes into the generalization. And the hope is that your stimulus control generalizes.
Got it.
Okay? That it's not always, if mom asks me this, I can answer. When we're at home. It's when the teacher asks me at school, if it's somebody in the community asks me, I know what all this means and I can answer right away.
Okay. And for those of you who are like, oh no, now they brought up generalization, I do want to point out that all of our jargon there's a playlist on YouTube that you can go and find all of our jargon. And what we do when we do jargon of the day, we give you the actual definition and then I make fun of it. Let's be honest about that. That's how it goes. And then we give you a working definition, which makes all of the BCBAs break out into hives. And then I try to put it into a circumstance so that we can really get a hold of it. And so check out our playlist. We definitely have generalization on there if that's a little confusing to you. I'm going to move on to the next question. So somebody wrote in and said, my grandchild does not want to take a bath when he pees in his pants. What to do? What can I do when he refuses to dress up for school and makes us late for school? And what to do if he's throwing things like a cup of juice?
Okay, so that's a lot there.
Yeah,
okay.
And there are many different things here happening. Yeah.
But I would say one of the main things is I think that frustrating morning routine is just the hardest thing for so many families. I mean, for typical families,
yes,
it's nerve-wracking. So you add in autism and not understanding language and not understanding time and purpose of activity. You add in all of that unknown, and it's just going to be one very frustrating ordeal.
Yes.
I would say immediately for all these kids is you want to put a routine into place. So we'll just start, let's start with the morning routine. He doesn't want to dress for school and he makes us late for school. There are a lot of components going on in there. I can't tell you exactly why it's happening, but I can take a few guesses.
Which reminds me, as you're saying that I didn't give the disclaimer that I always give when Dr. Granpeesheh is here, that none of the advice that will be given during this hour is individual specific, because we couldn't get enough information for any expert, even of Evelyn Kung's experience, to be able to know exactly for that child. So I meant to give the disclaimer, and I got so excited about the fact that you were here, and I didn't say it. So the advice and the information that's given here is of a more of a general nature to give you some ideas about what questions to ask next. So having said that, because there isn't enough information here for you to be able to say, okay, this is exactly what's going on, but you can give an educated guess about some of the things that you've seen over the many years that you've been doing this.
Yeah, I mean, every child's different, every family's different, every environment's different. So
Yes.
there's no way I could say this is going to work for you.
Yeah.
But I can take some guesses. And one of the things is our kids have that great memory. They like routine. They don't like changes. That's
Yeah.
the definition of autism, you know,
Yeah.
in so many ways. And so you kind of take that definition and you put it into whatever circumstance you're in. So if we take the idea that he refuses to dress for school and makes us late, first of all, it's like how much understanding, if he doesn't understand time, he doesn't know what being late is.
Yeah.
So parents are panicking and everybody else around them might be panicking about being late. But if he has no concept of time, he has no clue. And typical kids don't too. When they're little, they have no clue. Before they learn about time, they have no clue. And that's what makes, you know, your 3-year-old very frustrated, you know, when
Yeah.
they're slowly moving, picking up every piece of thing as they're walking. And the parents are like, come on, hurry. And then they can just pick them up and walk.
Yeah.
But when they're bigger, you can't do that anymore. So in situations like this about the morning, I always say you have to make the time wider so that you're not rushing and you give yourself time to be late. The other thing is to put a routine into place. So if you're going to get up every morning, you want to start doing the same things. So if you're going to get up, if the first thing you want them to do is brush their teeth and wash their face, then that's what you're going to do. Then you can have them eat breakfast, then change for school, and then go home. Whatever order that you want to make an order first. So that the child, when they wake up, they know what to expect.
Yeah.
You know, if you change it every day, it is hard for the child to understand, and it gets them frustrated too. And that's when you get tantrums, because they don't know why you're yelling at them or trying to hurry, and they don't know why suddenly yesterday we did it this way and now we're doing it this other way. And circumstances do change, and eventually we want to teach the kids to be flexible and to do things in different orders. But I'd say right now, before you have somebody helping you, you would put a good routine in place, you know, a good morning routine. If your child's visual, I would take pictures of each of the routines and hang it up in order. And as you go through each one, you could turn it over, put it away, whatever you want to do. But the child needs some warning. They need to know what's coming. And if they know what's coming and you're very consistent with it, there's more likely that they will follow through with each part of these things.
On our YouTube page, we have a series that we do that's called Smart Art, with Suzanne Oshinsky. And one of the ones that's on there, she teaches you how to, with the child, make a schedule for the 2 most stressful times of the day, in the morning and at night, going to bed, and make a visual schedule, and so that you can change the pictures in it. But I always say, I'm a visual person, and it makes me nuts. Like if I'm driving the car and somebody else has the directions and they won't tell me where we're going,
Yes.
it makes me nuts. It makes me lose my mind. And I can feel my anxiety ratchet up, and I will eventually go, tell me now.
Yes.
Like even Waze, I use Waze to go everywhere, but I hate it because it's a little bit slower than I want it to be. I want it to tell me a little bit sooner so that I can plan.
And we had that
adjust.
experience in Texas.
Yes. How many times did I have to go around to get you back to the airport? But so, and what I did was I had you telling me what was happening because Waze wouldn't tell me quick enough.
Yeah.
So that was my accommodation. But I think it's the same thing for our kids. If you imagine, I really think that someday we should just take all the autism parents and tell them, you don't get to do anything for the next, 24 hours until somebody tells you what to do, and you will get cranky.
Oh, I would be so upset.
Oh, I would lose my
Yes.
cookies way early in the day because I want to plan. I want to know what's happening. I want to know, when do I get a break?
Yeah.
I love Dr. Granpeesheh always says, imagine if you came to work and we didn't tell you when you were going to get to go home.
Yes.
Like you had no idea. And I go, oh, that would be bad.
Yeah.
Right?
It'd be horrible. And I mean, that's the way that you need to structure the child's life. And you want to give them warning. So if the night before you want to choose their clothes, you want to do all of that, the more warning that you can give the kids, the better it is.
Okay.
And in terms of schedules, what's the best thing is a visual timer. If you've never seen a visual timer before, it is the best thing in the world. The one I like is the one that's a circle. And you turn it to, let's say, 20 minutes, and it's all red, and then the red slowly disappears. And they know that when the red is gone, they need to change to the next activity. And you can see these kids, when they just see that and they start to understand how that works for each component, They are so good. And I remember walking into a typical classroom, and I had one, and there wasn't even a child that needed it. It's just the class was just unruly.
Yeah.
That I just put this visual timer that has no ringing, no buzzards, no anything, which is normal in a classroom.
Right.
And I just stuck it in the front of the class that was one of my friends were teaching.
Right.
And she was like, okay, that was just the most amazing thing in the world. All the first graders, suddenly, they all would look up and they'd be like, I only have this much time left. And then
amazing?
And it immediately changed their behavior so quickly.
It's wonderful.
And so much for these kids. So for a lot of the kids at home, I just say, get that visual timer. And a lot of them are free now on their apps that you can get on, on phones and on iPads and things. And you can use these visual timers so that the kids don't understand what 10 minutes is, but they can see that when all the sand has run out of the timer, or if the red has disappeared, that it's time for the next activity.
Okay, we just featured the time tracker like 2 weeks ago on the show from Learning Resources. I'm going to show it to you. It's a little bit different. It has a green light, a yellow light, and a red light, and you can program it for however long you need it to be. It's funny because we showed it on the show, and then my son walked into my office and he saw it and he was like, what's that? And I said, it's a way that the light prompts you instead of me having to prompt you and tell you that you've only got a few minutes. He said, oh, I would like that so much better. That's what he said to me the other day. So anyway, in any case, we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back with more, so stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
Abstract.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Evelyn Kung. She's the Clinical Director of CARD, and thrilled to have her here. We were answering a question, and we didn't finish with it, so I want to finish with it. Somebody had written in and said their grandchild does not want to take a bath when he pees his pants. She said that he also doesn't want to dress to go for school, and we already addressed that. But let's talk a little bit about the doesn't want to take a bath.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different things that could be in play there. One of the things is if you do have a routine, and a bath usually happens at night, trying to take a bath in the middle of the day after he's had an accident in his pants is out of the routine.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And he will fight you. Because this isn't normally what we do, because after a bath, usually I go to bed.
Yeah.
Or after the bath, it's end of the night, and the routine is broken. So that alone will cause a child to tantrum. Just the fact that the routine is out of order. And then you have the accident in the pants and the idea of just like it's dirty and he needs to be cleaned up. And that whole concept is very abstract.
Yeah.
Understanding for him, there's none of that meaning, the inference in it. It's just something that happened.
Yeah.
And so for so many of these kids, it is just something that happened. So trying to explain to them why they need a bath now, it just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So all of that all together becomes something that's very, very frustrating. What I usually say in those situations is, you actually have to create a routine for those situations.
Okay.
Where you're giving them warnings, and maybe you are you're ending it a special way, that's different from the nighttime bath.
Yeah.
But it's really sitting there, and the first problem with it is you're breaking routine. The second problem is he still needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
So you create a routine for how he's going to be cleaned up. Whether it's him going to the bathroom, how to take off his pants, where to put them, how Maybe you don't want a full bath, you know? That might be one option. I know for many of the families, I'll just say, you know what, clean what's dirty, and then you're done.
Right.
You know? And be willing to change.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't have to be the thing that you're picturing, and it doesn't have to be what he's picturing either.
And I think too, isn't it, what I'm picturing, because before we started ABA, anytime that somebody had an accident in my family, if that were to happen, there were words said about, well, you're supposed to be, a big boy. There were recriminations when it was happening. So, and that makes it a really unpleasant thing too. And taking off soiled things, I mean, let's face it, it's not a good feeling.
No, it's not a good feeling. And for some, and actually the not the good feeling is the good part. Because hopefully you want that not a good feeling to make him remember why he shouldn't have an accident in his hands and get to the bathroom earlier. So that actually is something that I actually like to pair, because I don't want accidents to happen in the future. What you don't want to do is if he has an accident and then you start to give him all these wonderful things, because then that becomes positive reinforcement.
Okay.
And then there will be more reasons to have an accident then.
So do we just keep, but we also don't want the yak about you weren't supposed to do that, you know better than that.
And half the kids don't even know what it means.
Right.
They're not listening.
But they know that they've done, that that you're not happy with them, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, and that doesn't help. So I always say this is when you want to just be very neutral.
Okay.
If the feeling is already gross, that's punishment enough.
Okay.
And you just have to be really neutral. It's like, it happened, let's go fix it now. And to fix it is this. And then you can have your order. And so there's some families who will just say, like, I don't even want to deal with the bath, so in situations like this, we'll just use wipes.
Yes.
And then tonight we'll just take a really good bath.
Right.
And maybe that's the option, Yeah. And a lot of times it's where you're at.
Yeah.
If you're at school, you're not getting into a bath.
Right. No kidding.
And then if you have the accident at school and you come home and so you're trying to convince the child to take a bath at a different time, it's even more confusing because they never link the two.
Okay. It's a lot to remember and a lot to think through, but it's so great to have your perspective on all these things.